not my dad! You also hear something! Ugly ass
Hello my friends and welcome back to Player Display for another retrospective, meaning a figure that's a little bit older than 10 years. Over here I have an entry from the Prometheus catalog from NECA being the really awesome Deacon. Really love this guy. This is one of those figures I've always wanted, but he's always been very hard to acquire, but I managed to find a deal that was pretty acceptable. But he's one of those figures I've just had on the back burner of my brain, just always wanted him, always wanted to have him in my hands to see what's up, and I'm extremely pleased. But that being said, he's also a very awkward figure. The articulation is very strange, and also, he's one of the rare occasions where he's so uniquely posed up that NECA actually provided him with the figure stand. So that's kind of an interesting, unique case. I think the only NECA figure I can remember that did have an actual figure stand to accommodate them was the Lon Chaney Wolfman. So, yeah, they just do that every now and then if somebody's on their tippy toes, like the Deacon over here. But yeah, it's just a pretty interesting case of a figure, a lot of unique little details, and again, it's fun to go in the DeLorean, go back in time a little bit, and just look at the older figures, right? And one last note before we get into the review, there are a few little updates for the channel that I wanted to brush up on before we conclude, so that will be at the very end, but for now, let's go ahead and hop right in. Honestly, I have no idea why I have such a soft spot for the Deacon. I mean, he only showed up at the very tail end of the Prometheus movie, a movie which I actually happen to enjoy. I know it's imperfect, but I guess I'm just a sucker for those classic origin stories, like, even though Prometheus wasn't a great movie, neither was AVP, but I like that movie a lot too. I guess I just like seeing the beginnings of these species, even though those two movies don't chronologically line up, they're not part of the same timeline. But regardless, we got some really awesome alien slash predator designs, and this is one of them, and you see he's trying to show that off to you right now with that mouth feature. So anyways, let's go ahead and talk about the head sculpt, which looks very familiar but also very different. I love how we have almost this offshoot cousin of the classic xenomorph. Here we have a Deacon, which is a predecessor, at least in the Prometheus timeline, which I guess you could consider canonical. The AVP movies are more so fan fiction, but if you want to consider Prometheus an official entry, then this is a very awesome alien to have alongside your alien collection. That is, if you're able to find him. He's quite hard to obtain these days.
Unobtainium.
As you can see from the profile, one of my favorite parts of this, I guess is one of the things that sells me on the design, is that we have this very sharp back of the head. He used to pierce his way out of an engineer's chest. It looks really painful. I love that a lot. Another really excellent aspect is the paintwork. You have this really glossy, very silky and organic looking navy blue going throughout the figure. You can also make out there's some black engineer blood dribbling throughout, which I really do appreciate. But then also going throughout the rest of the sculpt, you get some wrinkles, you get some, I guess those could be like gills or something, really not sure. No eyes or semblance of a face whatsoever, which really just adds to the overall creep factor. And when you first get the figure, of course, the mouth is closed. For me, the mouth was really stiff at first. It's almost like the original collector who got him never opened him up. And obviously, this figure was obtained out of box. He was loose, which is totally fine by me. It would have cracked the box open anyways. But now that I got him, I was able to open the mouth. It took a little bit of effort, but now everything's pretty swift. You just peel that down, and then you pop the jaw forward a little bit, which can be a little tricky. You can kind of use gravity to help you out just a tad. There we are. I think that's as far out as it goes. And then the best part about this figure is kind of its primitive inner jaw, which is not quite what you would expect from a typical xenomorph, but you instead have this little tongue that pulls upwards, revealing a third set of teeth, which I've always loved. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Again, we never see this guy after the fact, but it's just such a gnarly looking monster that I really wanted to see a lot more from. And this mouth is actually inspired by the ever so ugly goblin shark, which I highly recommend you look up because it really is a nasty looking organism, as is the Deacon, so totally fitting. So let's go ahead and close up that mouth once again. As you see, the jaw just pushed back, slap that back together, and there we are, looking really cool. Moving down to the torso, it looks a lot less biomechanical than the traditional xenomorph. Instead, you just have straight up animal, human looking bits, pretty much. So he has a really awesome, slender looking rib cage. Again, continuing with that blue, and then that engineer black blood going throughout. A little bit wrinkly neck over here, almost like an old man, sort of. And then something I want to talk about on the shoulders. I know we're not at articulation yet. This is one of the weirdest aspects of this figure, and if you're considering getting him, this is one thing that you really do want to think about. This is definitely an older NECA figure, and they did some awkward things with their articulation kind of throughout this guy, but especially on the shoulders. So one thing that you cannot do is swivel the arms forward, which is really odd, but you can hinge them up. And that's because the sculpt itself is where the joint should have been, but for some reason they prioritize the sculpt over the rest of the joint. I guess because he's such a slender character, they didn't want to corrupt any tightness within the joints by adding too many points of articulation or something like that. But you do at least have that hinge, and you do have a slight swivel in there, so you can at least get that hand up. You can see back here it's a softer plastic, so you can at least get him reaching up, raising his hand like he's asking a question, waving hello. Actually, it looks kind of perfect. But if you do want him reaching forward, you can actually cheat. So you can actually have him looking at a 90-degree angle, then use a waist swivel, push that in, and then you can get the arm outreached. So you can cheat, but it's a little bit weird how we have a joint that works like that. But that's it for articulation for now. We'll come back and do the whole smorgasbord as we always do. Going down to the arms, I really love how spindly they look. It remind me a lot of that bootleg newborn that we saw from Alien Resurrection. It's almost very plant-like, I almost want to say. It feels like roots or stems. Down to the hands, also very creepy and newborn looking. No fingernails really to speak of. It's pretty much just the long 5 digits looking absolutely creepy. And that's really the thing about the xenomorph and their family tree, is that even though they all look very distinctly different, they all bring a lot of creepiness to the table, which I really do love. Down to the pelvis, more of that flesh warping and creepiness. We got his deacon butt. No butt crack, unfortunately. And then moving on down, we got, again, more of that muscly rib design going on throughout, especially in the inner thighs over here. Whereas on the outside of the leg, it gets a little bit more smooth. Although you still see in the light, it captures a lot of sculpted texture work, which I really love. Down to the knees, a little bit more bulbous. Again, down to the calf, same deal with all the details. As you get to the foot, though, it gets a little more interesting. Like I said with the Lon Chaney werewolf, he was standing on his tippy toes. That is especially more pronounced on the deacon here. So he doesn't sit like that. He actually stands over here. So, of course, that is made a little bit easier when we have the figure stand that comes with him, which is right here. So I don't know what's going on here. It's almost like there used to be a sticker or something that got peeled off. I'm not too sure. Again, I got this out of the box. It was not mint or anything, which I'm totally good with. And also, I'm not willing to pay mint and box prices for figures this old. But as you can see, he almost has like these acrylic heels going on. Like he just left a Victoria's Secret or something. I don't know what you'd say about it. But he's got 2 peg holes at the bottom of each foot. All you have to do is just peg them in. But for some reason, I find that the left foot pegs in a little bit more flush in comparison to the right. You see that the pin moves in a little bit closer to that acrylic heel. So when we try putting that hole in there, it's a little bit awkward, which is okay because the other one kind of supports him fine. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky because the rest of him is so top heavy, but eventually you do hit a sweet spot where he can stand. I mean, you saw him at the beginning of the video, but there we go. And then once you get him stood up like that, then I'd leave the legs exactly where they are, more crouched as he should be. Then if you want any more movement, I'd work from waist up, then to the head. They can do whatever you want. So once you get the feet done, everything else a little bit easier. Now, one thing that the Deacon fortunately has that a lot of xenomorphs do not is accessories in order to back up the small size that he happens to have. But over here, we have a decapitated engineer in his space jockey outfit, pretty much. And this is the head that the crew from Prometheus kind of probes before it kind of explodes in a microwave in a big black gook. But it's a pretty neat looking accessory. I don't know who would be holding it or doing anything with it. I mean, certainly not the Deacon, because chronologically that wouldn't make a whole ton of sense. But it is a very well sculpted piece. I guess you could have Shaw holding it, or just someone that's part of the crew. Idris Elba, I guess, could also be holding it. But yeah, it's a pretty neat looking accessory, especially if you have the other engineers. I believe I have almost all of them except for the holographic variants, but you can actually open this up as well, which is pretty great. Then you see the very emaciated looking engineer head on the inside. The paintwork I don't love, I'll be honest. It feels a little bit, I don't know how you describe it, a little too even, I guess. I mean, for a face that's been kind of just buried for centuries, perhaps millennia, I don't know. It just feels like it's a little too consistent for anything that's been dead or preserved for a very long time. I don't feel like any kind of decaying would be this normalized throughout the actual organic piece. But whatever, it's not a huge deal. I mean, I'd probably keep the helmet on anyways, so that's not a big deal. But anyways, aside from the paint, the sculpt is very good. It definitely looks like the other aliens that we've seen in the line. Got a big old open mouth with some teeth. Also got those big black pits that are his eyes. And yeah, and then the blue paint is a little bit weird to me, but it's not so bad. And again, I prefer to have the space jockey helmet on. Then you have a decapitated engineer, which could even be a Predator war trophy if you really like. Maybe good for Ahab. Now we have two more accessories, being the hammerpedes, which are absolutely creepy looking. Ugh, wouldn't want to see these in my soup or anything. But yeah, they're absolutely nasty and creepy looking, as they should be. They are done on a bendy wire, just like the chest bursters from most xenomorph releases. You can bend them back, bend them out straight if you want. Climb down, and they could be doing a little bit of a snake slither across the floor. If you want them standing up, though, it does take a little more finessing. Like, if you put it down, it's just kind of going to flop over one way or the other. I found the best way to counter that is by coiling it up, almost like a ring. You can use your finger as sort of a wraparound if you want. And then if you do that, and then you have the weight shifting into the ring, then that will allow him to actually sit up. So this is our retracted hammerpede, and then here is our open one, which is of course my preferred one, but they don't have to be the same one. They'd be like two separate ones. That's totally okay. But yeah, this is a starting organism for a deacon, pretty much the caterpillar to its butterfly. This one in this case is actually opened up. It's got this really nice pink fleshy paint throughout, some wrinkles, just a lot of disgusting. It's perfect. And then we can go ahead and put them next to each other, and you will see that they are pretty much identical in sculpt, except for the head, as it should be, if you could even call it a head. I have no idea. You do get, oh, bye, let's bring it back in. You do get a little bit of a hole revealing the bendy wire, which I hope lasts a good long time. I hope those wouldn't be prone to breaking. I guess the less you flex it, the more it will stay in place. But yeah, two really nice pieces. Good to have more parts of the alien life cycle. We already looked at a few of the finer points of articulation on this figure, but just to cover everything, let's go ahead and start with the top. Over here, we have actually a really good neck joint. You get all 360. You get really good amount down, which I love. Again, I like the piercing up action I can have from the back point of the head. Has some excellent tilt. Then you also have a jaw, which we just talked about. As for the arms, we also discussed this as well, is just the hinge and the swivel. It doesn't go 360 because of the way that the shoulders are sculpted over this collarbone, I suppose you could call it. As for the elbows, single jointed, definitely not hitting any 90 degrees with it, which is fine. I mean, I want them reaching out and being all weird and stuff, so that's totally okay. As for the wrists, they are more primitive, so they are on a ball joint, they are not pinned, but you do have that much in, that much out, then up and down, and you get all your rotation looking very sweet. As for the waist, you have a ball joint over here, and this again is going to be the joint that you want to get him into more dynamic or characteristic poses. You can do pretty good swivel, get pretty decent amount down, a little bit up, not a ton. and then a little bit side to side. Actually, it's better than I expected. I haven't really played with that yet. As for the legs, it seems like it's just a ball joint at the top of the thigh. So that much out, that much back in. You can do actually a full 90 kick forward, which is pretty cool. As for back, though, it kind of V's out at the butt, and then it doesn't really want to go any further than that. As for the knees, go way in, which is really good. Again, he's supposed to be more in a crouching position anyways. Come back out. There's even a swivel as well, so you could probably play with that too. As for the ankles, they are also on a ball joint. Again, much older figure, but you do have a little bit of rocker. It's not great, but you do have your swivel. You get a little bit down and a better amount up. So, yeah, it's not the best articulation ever, but, I mean, you're able to get him to do what you want him to do overall, so for an early entry for NECA, not too bad. I like him a lot. And for a few simple size comparisons, I have him with a whole bunch of other Alien or Prometheus figures. Over here we have the ultimate big chap Alien. Then over here we have the last engineer, more specifically being his father, technically, which is a really weird way of thinking about it. Then over here we have Apone being the Kenner tribute. And then down here we have the Hammerpedes once again, along with the engineer head. And those are better scaled when you put them alongside Mechamuck!
Why do you even call these things hammerpedes anyways? Okay, I'll go!
That's pretty much it for the NECA Prometheus Deacon. Again, one of those characters I just have dreamed of owning, but have never really gone to him because of the crazy uptick in price. I don't know, it just seems like a spin of the roulette wheel. There are some NECA figures which are pretty easy to get after some release, and you can find them still in stores like 5 years after their debut, like Frankenstein, for example. Then there's other ones, like they're around for a month, they disappear, then all the scalpers have them. I don't know how that happens, but it's just a weird thing. But fortunately, I found a decent deal, and I really wanted him, so I decided, alright, hell, let's go ahead and do a review on him. And retrospectives are always fun. It's nice to see how NECA especially has changed over time. I think almost all of our retrospectives have been NECA, correct me if I'm wrong. But, yeah, this is just one of those really awesome looking designs that I really wanted to have on my shelf. Really cool to compare him with Big Chap as well, just to see the evolution of the alien. You have a more primitive one over here. Then you got the more biomechanical xenomorph kind of off to the side on our display, which you can't really see at the moment. All right, fine. Here he is. Yeah, see, more mechanical. There you go. But yeah, yeah, just a really awesome entry. If you're able to ever find him for a decent enough price that you can swallow, I highly recommend him. Like, I guess the only real issue is the fact that the joints are very odd. It definitely is something that we've never really seen before, where you can't even swivel the arm forward. I don't think I've ever seen that on an action figure, let alone on a NECA figure. But if you can get past that, and you also don't mind the fact that he pretty much always needs that figure stand, then I say you're good to go. It's a really fun toy, and yeah, it's just an exciting new creature to have on the shelf, so highly recommend them. Now, with all that being said, before you go, I do have a few updates for anyone who cares or is interested. Uploads on this channel might dip a little bit, just because I need to concern myself with budget, student loans, and rent, shit like that. So I'm going to do my best to keep pumping out reviews. I'm going to aim for weekly, do one video a week, but that's not going to be the easiest thing to do. It's just I do need to pick and choose what exactly I will want to buy, what I can't buy. That's just a collector's conundrum. It's not just me, it's everyone out there, so that's pretty much how it goes. But worst case, if I'm not able to get action figures for a long amount of time, I still have a whole bunch of folks in my collection that we could do retrospectives on just for fun. So all that being said, for those of you who really like this channel, go ahead in the comments and let me know what sort of reviews you would like to see, assuming that I can't get every single brand new release that's out there, right? Like, of course, I got a whole bunch of Predators that we can look at, got a lot of Marvel Legends, got a lot of Star Wars Black Series, got a ton of customs as well, so I'm willing to do anything, and I'll pretty much just do whatever's at my whim, whatever I find the most interesting. But if there's anything that you in particular would like to see, go ahead and let me know. Like, honestly, I love doing these just for fun. They're really exciting to me. It really just just makes my day to get these videos uploaded and to see everyone's reactions to them. I think it's really fun. And yeah, that's pretty much all. I just wanted to let you know that the upload schedule might be a little more sporadic. I always aim for early in the week, but that might not always be possible, at least for now. Just gotta work on my budget a little bit, but once I'm able to do that, I wouldn't say it necessarily will go back to normal, but I hope we can get to somewhere close to that. So just be wary of that. Things are gonna get a little bit wonky, but that being said, really hope you enjoyed this review. Thank you guys so much for watching my video, for being part of this channel if you've been subscribed. And if you're new here, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like, comment,
ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals, and subscribe. This is the editor speaking, humbly reminding you to support the pod Patreon in the description to guarantee new content every single week.
Thank you guys very much for watching. Rock on, and I will see you all later.